I'm at Noyes Insights. A lot to cover here as we get ready for our Thanksgiving Day storm. Look, it's cool but dry for most of us on Wednesday. We've already got you out to tomorrow morning in the 24-hour video from Danielle. You'll find that at onedegreeoutside.com and atop our Noyes' 1 Degree Outside weather app. It's an all-day storm on Thursday with a huge elevation difference depending on where you are. We'll talk about that. Friday through Sunday, you're going to be just fine. Speaking of the app, if you haven't gotten it yet, if you're doing any traveling, the thing works across the country. All right, grab it. It's Noyes' 1 Degree Outside weather. You'll find it in the App Store and Google Play. It's going to be really helpful for this storm because no matter where you're going, you'll get the localized forecast, both the hourly forecast, etc. All right, we found the precipitation spreading in here over the course of this morning. This has been a wintry mix in northern and parts of central New England with freezing rain and sleet. It's been mostly rain in southern New England. Actually, though, with the exception of the storminess that's coming into the West Coast, most of the country isn't that bad. You go into tomorrow, day before Thanksgiving, I got to tell you, for a storm, it's going to be a real pain in the neck for us on Thanksgiving Day. We have some showers in St. Louis, some later day showers that'll be coming into Cincinnati, snow out in Denver, admittedly. But a lot of the country does fine for day before Thanksgiving travel. And that's kind of an important note because the storm's getting a lot of billing and it deserves it. But at the same time, for travel the day before Thanksgiving, you're good. It is very cold tomorrow in the northern plains, highs in the teens versus the warmth down south. And, of course, this cold-warm clash is storm breeding ground, which is why this storm takes off, ends up over us on Thursday with a real mess. Let's dive into what we think the mess is going to be. First thing that I mentioned yesterday and actually even mentioned last week in Insights, the cold is not textbook cold over us, right? What do you have on Thursday? High temperatures will run in the 30s in northern New England and actually do make it into the 40s in southern New England. And it's not like tomorrow you've got this Arctic air that's in place. This is not the kind of setup you'd have if you want a big humdinger of a snowstorm, really anywhere, but particularly in southern New England. Now, tomorrow there may actually be some lake effect snow showers that can fly off of Lake Ontario across the Tug Hill Plateau and make it into northern Vermont over the course of the day, and that'd be about it. Other than that, we'll wait till Thanksgiving morning. It starts early, though. You can see by 5:15 you've got snow flying in the Berkshires, across the southern Greens. Flurries trying to come into southwest New Hampshire for that matter as well. When you get into Connecticut, some of the Litchfield Hills may start as a little bit of snow and then go over to rain. Here it is building in from west to east over the course of Thursday morning by about 8 o'clock on Thanksgiving morning. By the way, what's it like down in New York City? They will be dealing with rain. The wind shouldn't be epic down in New York City. So some of those floats will go, some of them may not. But gusts are not going to be bad because the storm center almost goes right over them. So the worst gusts actually stay over Long Island and then come into parts of southeast New England, which we'll get to in a minute. They're not that bad anyway. Notice by 11 o'clock on Thanksgiving morning, here's the snow coming down across a lot of central New Hampshire. What I think is really interesting, though, is the tremendous elevation difference that shows up really already at 11 in the morning. Snowing in the Berkshires, Worcester Hills, northern Worcester County. You actually may flip-flop back and forth. As precipitation gets heavier, that tends to cool the atmosphere. So as we get to the midday and early afternoon, you're back over to snow in some of these areas of northwest Worcester County and to southwest New Hampshire. It comes down pretty hard, so you do probably get some wintry driving conditions in some of these spots. I doubt that's going to be the case at Fitchburg and Leominster, though. I think you're just a little bit too far southeast. What I will say is, same thing I said yesterday, I think if we see any trend on this, it's going to be a trend for more warm air to intrude farther north, all right, because the cold just isn't dense. It's not strong. It's not textbook for this at all. So what that means is you end up with this huge elevation difference. Notice by the time we get to 4 p.m. on Thanksgiving Day, by the way, if you're doing local travel, you say, I just need to know when I can get back on the road to get home on Thanksgiving. Look at 4 p.m. Worst of it's done in the whole southern half of New England, right? By 6 p.m., same deal. Northern New England, a little different story. We're nestled in the mountains probably because it does continue to snow on our Thanksgiving evening and night. How much? This map does not do justice to the elevation difference, but it's still a little early for us to be able to get that kind of really precise detail, right? I bet when you get into Worcester County, we're not tight enough yet on the gradient. What I mean by that is I bet we go from nothing to snow really quickly in a short distance. And so I think what that means is we probably, if my inclination is right that the warmth will end up winning, have to tighten that up to the north and west. But for now, one of the things you want to do to have an intelligent forecast is say, all right, let's put it right in the middle and be conservative on where this thing may end up, right? We're humble about the fact that we think it'll end up farther northwest, but if it doesn't, we don't want you to be caught by surprise if you get wintry roads in areas like Athol running up to Ringe, which is a possibility. Notice that is not likely around Springfield or the Pioneer Valley, but you come into the Berkshires, that deep blue lines up to 6 inches of snow that we expect to come down across this area. Now, having said that, I got to tell you, there's enough precipitation, I'll show you in a minute. You actually could do more like 8, 10, and 12 in some of the high terrain. What's also really astounding is you can go as far north as you want, but in the Champlain Valley, it doesn't make a difference. It's still all about elevation. That's the case, too, in the Upper Valley. That's going to be the case, too, in some of these areas around the White Mountains. You see, oh, we've drawn it nice, and it looks pretty to just have the contours of 6 inches or more, right, 4 to 6 inches. It isn't going to work that way. Nature's not going to play that game this time around. There's going to be tremendous elevation dependency out of this event. So keep that in mind. Tomorrow, I think we can get even a little bit more specific on how exactly that's going to look. Next 72 hours in terms of precipitation, wow, it's a lot. And this is why I say in the mountains, we did this in New York State last week. The mountains got 12 to 16 inches of snow. The valley's got 2. I think we do a very similar thing. There's enough precipitation there that some of your summits are probably going to end up with over a foot of snow out of this thing, even though the valleys will end up with far less. Here it is again, the overview on the storm center as it crosses southern New England Friday morning, still snowing in central and northern Maine. So while I say Friday is much better, just keep in mind that doesn't necessarily go for everybody. By later on Friday, it certainly is much better for many of us. Some snow showers left over in the mountainous terrain of western and northern New England, kind of coming in with moisture blowing off of the Great Lakes. Saturday is going to be cool, but it's the drier air coming back. I mentioned the wind. When you get down around New York City, you may get a brief period of gusty wind during the morning to midday. And again, that may unfortunately mean some of those floats don't go with the parade. But definitely the strongest of the gusts is going to be southeast New England, running up through Boston. But even there, what are we talking? On the Cape, you've got gusts of 40 miles per hour coming out of the southeast. An easterly wind that comes into Boston with a 51-degree ocean is why, yeah, there's so much of eastern Mass that never will get snow. Even as you go to a north-northeasterly wind behind the center of circulation as it goes by. And your gusts may hit 40 coming out of the north-northeast, but there's no cold air to bring in on that. So it's not like the dead of winter type storm where you could snap the cold down out of Maine. You're just not going to do it across a lot of eastern New England this time around. It's not there for you. Notice tomorrow's high temperatures, 45 to 50. Remember what I said about not setting the table for a classic winter storm, right? Wednesday night already for overnight lows. You're marginal on temperature. And that's why Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, it's all about elevation for us here. By Thursday night, we're dropping down to freezing. One thing to note, you may get a little bit of black ice developing, even in the areas that saw mostly rain, as the temperature drops down to about freezing overnight Thursday night. Friday, likely to find high temperatures in the 40s, and Saturday, right around 40 degrees or so. So that's where things stand. The 14-day, you'll find it in the app, of course. And in terms of the gear, if you want to get geared up for the new winter weather coming in, it's swag.onedegreeoutside.com. I'll have another insights for you tomorrow here as we get ready for this storm. We'll fine-tune some of the details on elevation and who gets what. In the meantime, you can always look for further updates from us on our social media handles, the number 1 Degree Outside, and of course, on our website, onedegreeoutside.com, where we post everything right atop that app home screen. Have a great rest of your day.